earth is on fire. The planet can't breathe. What are you going to do to take away its pain? Are you going to be part of the problem or part of the cure? What are you going to do to save our world? Save our world. You know we got to save our world. Save our world. You know we got to save our world. The melting glaciers, we're running from the rising tides. No land left to grow our crops. We face a fight to survive. Save our world. You know we've got to save our world. Got to stop chasing money, looking for a quick profit.
Save our world.
Cause the factory pollution is making everyone sick.
But people can't see that.
Save our world. You know we got to save our world. Many species are becoming extinct. When are we gonna wake up and think? Can stop 26. Save us from the brink.
Suffering from terrible paralysis. The whole world is suffocating. We've gone insane, nobody seems to care. The whole world is ransacked, situation too bad, now it's time to care. Oh my brother,
Save our world.
we got to save our
No,
world.
we got to save our
From
world.
north to south, we got to save,
Save our world.
save our
No, we
world.
got to save our
From
world.
west to east, we've got to save,
Save our world.
save our
No, we
world.
got to save our world.
Everywhere you are, you got to save,
Save our world.
save our
No, we got to
world.
save our world.
Save our world.
It's a map for everyone. There be no other paradise. You get one tree, you plant two. It is time to be wise. Use your voice, be informed, be political. Travel responsibly, eat sustainably. Reduce your waste. Watch what you buy. Find the way to heal this planet. Find the way to heal your people. Because
Diseases are spreading. We're like a prisoner on the run. We gotta act fast. We're running out of places to
diseases are spreading. We like a prison on the run. We gotta act so fast. Yes, we are running out of places to run.
save our
We
world.
got to save our world. Man and the children.
Save our world.
Save our
No, we
world.
got to save our
The rich
world.
man, poor man, they got to save.
Save our world.
Save our
No, we got to
world.
save our world.
Old and young people got to
Save our world.
Save our
No,
world.
we got to save our world.
Being informed, political. Being informed, political. We should stop using plastic. Plastic full of fishes, species we like to eat. Yeah. Stop plastic
Diseases are spreading.
every day.
We're like a prisoner on the run.
Every day.
We gotta act fast. We're running out of places to
Diseases are spreading. We like a prison on the run. We got act so fast. Yes, we are running out of places to run. Yeah.
save our world.
Fuck up.
You know we've got to save our world.
Ọdún tuntun tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí. Bàbá jọ ṣojú ẹ̀mí wá. Ọdún tuntun tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí. Kí lẹ wí? Bàbá jọ ṣojú ẹ̀mí wá. Káboyún ilé kan bìtìbìtì rẹ̀. Káwọn oníṣòwò kan máa rere ọjà. Àwa tá ti bí káìsàn má ṣe wọ́n. Bàbá jọ ṣojú ẹ̀mí wá. December tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí kò ní dìwà mẹ́rù lọ. December tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí kò ní dìwà mẹ́rù lọ. Kò ní dìwà mẹ́rù lọ. Kò ní dìwà mẹ́rù lọ yìí tèmi. December tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí kò ní dìwà mẹ́rù lọ. Gbogbo ẹyẹ lólùfẹ́ Jẹ́gẹ́dẹ́ Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ àjọ máa ṣe ní dandan. December lọ́la sátìlọ́gbọ̀n yìí kò ní dìwà mẹ́rù lọ. Ìbàrẹ̀ bá mi ò bẹ́ kọ́mándà bàbá kẹ́ẹ̀pẹ́. December tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí kò ní dìwà mẹ́rù lọ. 2022 tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí aṣojú gbogbo wa. December tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí December tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí wà mẹ́rù lọ. Àmì àṣẹ àmì. Everybody.
All right, more on our top story. Crowds of Sudanese citizens are out on the streets of the capital Khartoum to protest for a second day against Monday's military coup. At least 10 people were reported killed and dozens injured as a result of soldiers opening fire. For an analysis on the situation in Sudan, let's bring in Babatunde Aloba, Africa Fellow at the think tank group Atlas Network, as he joins us. All right, today let's actually bring in, so talk to us. Things are not getting better and the world is actually not happy with how things have played out in Sudan. At the moment, we even hear that aid to Sudan has been stopped. For you, make out what has been happening in Sudan. Could this have been averted in the first place?
Thank you. I think this could have been averted if the Freedom and the Forces for Freedom Coalition, which is the FCC, headed by the now deposed Prime Minister Abdel Hamdok, had solved the crisis it had within itself. Remember, 2 weeks ago or thereabouts, there was a failed military coup, which was pretty much mounted out of frustration against the FCC's infighting, and of course, which has stalled its way of working with the military side of the coalition. So this could have been averted if Abdel Hamdok had listened to the disgruntled element within the FCC, and perhaps if the FCC had renegotiated or come to terms to some sort of understanding with the military faction led by Abdel Fattah Burhan.
So now that the tensions have continued to escalate and the aid has been cut, the internet and telephone services are haywire, I'm just wondering how do you think this will play out and how long it will take before they come to some kind of sit down at a table to discuss how to move forward?
So I think the ball is in the court of the military leader, Mr. Burhan, and pretty much everything rests on him at the moment. The US can condemn, or the African Union, or whatever other country can condemn or make statements. But if you go by the current trend in Africa, at least in the last 1 or 2 years, you will see that the military rulers, in cases where there have been coups, wield more power than perhaps we ever thought. For example, if you go to the case of Mali, when Assimi Goïta toppled the former president Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta in 2020, and of course they created a transition government headed by Ba a civilian, and 9 months after, Assimi Goïta again toppled Ba. You go to the case in Guinea, where Mamadou Doumbouya toppled the former president Alpha Condé, and I think last week pretty much swore himself in as a legitimate leader of Guinea until an election is being held. So you can see that from the trend, the military seems to be more interested in politics nowadays. And they may be promising to hold elections or even promising to work with a civilian coalition to bring about elections. But I do not think this is the case. And in Burhan's case, I think we could be seeing what will likely be a start of another military dictatorship in Sudan after al-Bashir's 30-year rule.
All right, Babatunde, some political analysts are saying that long-serving dictators are the ones opening the door for more coups to be happening in the continent of Africa. Is this the case here?
See, Aaron, you know as well as I do that greed and the lack of transparency in long-term leadership can only brew disgruntled elements that will break out of issues like marginalization, persecution, or the intolerability of criticism. And if this is the case, then you can only expect one thing: that eventually, when the dictatorship is toppled, that there will be a lot of contestations as regard who should be the rightful leader or who should be included in that government. You see, one of the many problems, one of the many reasons why this problem is happening in Sudan is because a lot of tribes, remember, Sudan is a very, very diverse country. A lot of tribes or suburban regions, religious leaders, some village leadership have cried for that the 30 years of Bashir marginalize their regions or their people. And in the FCC led by Amdork, they want to be included, which was why they participated in the 2019 protest. But what Amdork did was that it pretty much created an elite gang within the FCC that marginalized or continued to marginalize the regular people, the clerics, the rebel leaders across Sudan. And it's pretty much a continuum from what we saw from the Arab Spring when Gaddafi was ousted, and there have been a lot of back and forth among rebel leaders. The same thing almost happened in Egypt and now Sudan. So it's a legacy of long-term dictatorship in Africa.
Babatunde, can you speak on the humanitarian crisis? Sudan has a huge population. Obviously, like we said before, aid is being cut. There are people that are being killed, and it seems like tensions won't die down. What could we expect in the next couple of weeks from this?
So you heard when Ned Price, the U.S. Secretary, one of the people working at the Foreign Department, said the $700 million aid meant to be sent to Sudan has now been stored. I think that's, although I'm not a big advocate of foreign aid, but when it comes to humanitarian situations like this, you can only feel for the Sudanese people, particularly if you think around the current economic state of the country. The country is witnessing one of the worst economic moments it has ever seen after independence. For example, the unemployment rate is closing to about 19% for a country of about 40 or thereabout million people. And the inflation rate is at a record high, 166%, plus COVID. You put this along together with the poverty rate in the country. So you can see that people are pretty much frustrated. The fuel price in Sudan is about 2 times the price of 2019. So all this put together can only bring out the frustration in the people, which was why we saw protests and counter-protests last week on the street of Omdurman and Khartoum calling for Burhan to do something definitively. And I guess what is definitive in this case for Burhan is sending out all the civilian side of the coalition.
All right, I want to say many thanks to you, Babatunde, for taking our time to update us with what is happening in Sudan.
The world is on fire. The planet can't breathe. What are you going to do to take away its pain? Are you going to be part of the problem or part of the cure? What are you going to do to save our world? Save our world. You know we got to save our world. Save our world. You know we got to save our world. We're melting glaciers. We're running from the rising tides. The land left to grow crops. We face a fight to survive. Save our world. You know we've got to save our world. Got to stop chasing money, looking for a quick profit.
Save our world.
Cause it's like a revolution. It's making everyone sick.
get situation too bad, now it's time to care. Oh my brother,
Save our world.
you got to save our world. To south, we got to
Save our world.
save our
Oh, we
world.
got to save our
From
world.
west to east, we got to
Save our world.
save our
Oh, we
world.
got to save our world.
Everywhere you are, you got to
Save our world.
Save our
Oh, we got to
world.
save our world.
Save our world.
It's a map for everyone. There be no other paradise. You get one tree, you plant two. It is time to be wise. Use your voice, be informed, be political. Travel responsibly, eat sustainably. Reduce your waste. Watch what you buy. Find a way to heal this planet. Find a way to heal your people. Because
Diseases are spreading. We're like a prisoner on the run. We gotta act fast. We're running out of places to
diseases are spreading like a prison on the run. We gotta act so fast. Yes, we are running out of places to run.
save our
We
world.
got to save our world. Man and the children.
Save our world.
Save our
Oh,
world.
we got to save our
The rich
world.
man, poor man, I got to save.
Save our world.
Save our
Oh, we got to
world.
save our world.
Old and young people got to
Save our world.
save our
Oh,
world.
we got to save our world.
Being informed, be political. Being informed, be political. We should stop using plastic. Being informed, be plastic full of fishy species we like to eat. Yeah. Stop plastic
Diseases are spreading.
every day.
We're like a prisoner on the
Every
run.
day.
We gotta act fast. We're running out of places to Diseases are spreading.
Like a prison on the run. We got act so fast. Yes, we are running out of places to run. Yeah.
Save our world.
What up?
You know we've got to save our world.
tuntun tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí. Bàbá jọ ṣojú ẹ̀mí wa. Àdó tuntun tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí. Kí lẹ wí? Bàbá jọ ṣojú ẹ̀mí wa. Káboyún ilé kan bìtìbìtì rẹ̀. Káwọn oníṣòwò kan máa rere ọjà. Àwa tá ti bí káìsàn má ṣe wọ́n. Bàbá jọ ṣojú ẹ̀mí wa. Dísẹ́mbà tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí kò ní díwà mẹ́rù lọ. Dísẹ́mbà tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí kò ní díwà mẹ́rù lọ. Kò ní díwà mẹ́rù lọ. Kò ní díwà mẹ́rù lọ yìí tèmi. Dísẹ́mbà tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí kò ní díwà mẹ́rù lọ. Gbogbo ẹyẹ olólùfẹ́ Jegede Sekere àjọ máa ṣe ní dandan. Dísẹ́mbà tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí kò ní díwà mẹ́rù lọ. Ìbàrẹ̀ bàmí òbí kọ́ máa dà. Bàbá kẹ́ẹ̀pẹ́. Dísẹ́mbà tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí kò ní díwà mẹ́rù lọ. 2022 tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí aṣojú gbogbo wa. Dísẹ́mbà tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí Dísẹ́mbà tó ń bọ̀ lọ́nà yìí kò ní díwà mẹ́rù lọ. Àmì àṣẹ. Àmì. Ẹ fi bọ́jú.